The group of reporters, not instigated by me, I should know, made guesses about how dead he appeared to be, percentage-wise, which is hysterical. That's exactly what I would be joking about if I were in there. Someone says, 40% dead? Yeah, 40%'s about good. He was at 60% dead 2 nights ago. You should have seen that.
I've been going wherever I've been asked, whatever task, large and small, because I believe in this man. I believe in his character. I believe that he has been one of the most transformative presidents in our collective lifetime.
A brutal insider report explains just how far gone Joe Biden is. It is devastating, and this was just recently released, making many people wonder why it took so long for this to finally come out. If the person who wrote this knew all about this, why weren't they alerting the Democrats, raising the red flags for everybody to see before things got so far gone? But the story is wild. You see, this was written by Olivia Newsy, New York's Washington correspondent. The article is from nymag.com, and it's talking about this conspiracy of silence to protect Joe Biden, like a RICO conspiracy or something like that. Interesting. The president's mental decline was like a dark family secret for many elite supporters. This journalist is reporting, saying that all the way back in January, okay, after the debate, we already know we've lived this a lot, but here's the backstory. Why was this all so quiet and so secret up until very recently? Why couldn't these people figure this out, put 2 and 2 together? Here's this journo writing, in January, I began hearing similar stories from Democratic officials, activists, and donors that Joe was going bye-bye. All people who supported the president and were working to help re-elect him to a second term. Now, following encounters with the president, they had arrived at the same concern. Could he really do this for another 4 years? Could he even make it to election day? Questions we've been asking since 2020. Now, uniformly, these people were of a similar social strata. They lived and they socialized in Washington, New York, and Los Angeles. They did not wish to come forward with their stories because they're good little Democrats who fall in line. They did not want to blow a whistle because they're like sheep. They don't ever want to stand out. They wished that they could whistle past what they knew and emerge in November victorious and relieved, hiding their heads in the sand, burying their existence from the reality. Now, they couldn't think that far ahead. When they discussed what they knew, what they had seen, what they had heard, they literally whispered to each other. Joe Biden's demented. They can't even talk about it. They were scared. They were horrified. What a way to live. But they were also burdened. They needed to talk about it, though they couldn't talk about it on the record. Could you imagine living your life this way? This is how you exist in your political world. You can't even talk about your candidate. You can't even talk about your politics. You know that you're living a lie. Your entire political philosophy is based around living a lie. It's why they're so miserable. And I'm not joking about that. It's this self-perpetuating state of misery. And they always need somebody else to fix things for them. And then they're hiding in their dishonesty. It's a miserable existence from what I can tell. And it looks like it too. Now, they needed to know that they were not alone and not crazy. Well, you were crazy because you were denying reality. But things were so bad, and they knew things were bad, and they knew others must also know things were bad, and yet they would need to pretend outwardly that things were fine. Talk about insanity. The president was fine. The election would be fine. They would be fine. To admit otherwise would mean jeopardizing the future of the country. And well, nobody wanted to be responsible for that. Okay, so Trump is worse than a non-entity, I guess? Their disclosures often followed innocent questions that popped up. People would ask them, have you seen the president lately? How does he seem? Often they would answer with only silence, their eyes widening cartoonishly, their heads shaking back and forth with disapproving sounds. Phew. Or with a simple, not good. Or with an accusatory question of their own. Have you seen him? All these Democrats living around in this state of total despair, trying to make sense of their distorted reality. What a life. Now, those who encounter the president in social settings sometimes left their interactions disturbed. Longtime friends of the Biden family who spoke to me on condition of anonymity were shocked to find the president did not remember their names. At a White House event last year, a guest recalled with horror, realizing that the president would not be able to stay for the reception because it was clear he would not be able to make it through the reception. Everyone's just covering it up. The guest wasn't sure they could even vote for Biden, since the guest was now open to the idea that they had previously dismissed as right-wing propaganda that the president may not really be the acting president after all. Now, others told me that the president was becoming increasingly hard to get a hold of, even as it related to government business. The type of things that any U.S. president would communicate about on a regular basis, he couldn't do it. Biden instead was cocooned within mounting layers of bureaucracy, spoken for more than he was being spoken to. Now, saying hello to one Democratic mega donor and family friend at the White House recently, the president stared blankly, nodded his head. Eyes are just dead. The First Lady intervened to whisper in her husband's ears. Dr. Jill leaned in, said, "Say hello, Joe." To say hello to the donor by name, telling Joe to say hello. Say hello, Mr. Donor, and say thank you like you would an 8-year-old. The president repeated the words his wife had fed him. "Oh, hello, Mr. Donor. Thank you so much for your generosity." The president repeated the words that Jill fed into his mouth. "It hasn't been good for a long time, but it's gotten so much worse," a witness to the exchange told me. Now, who is actually in charge? Nobody knew. But surely someone was in charge, right? And surely there must be a plan, since surely the situation could not endure, right? This journalist writes, "I heard these questions posed at cocktail parties on the coasts, but I also heard them at MAGA rallies in Middle America. There emerged a comical overlap between the beliefs of the nation's most elite liberal Biden supporters and the most rabid conspiratorial supporters of Trump," which is not a conspiracy at all. Everybody who thought Joe Biden was brain dead and that the media was covering up for him was completely vindicated. Robert Hur, completely vindicated. Everybody who called him a liar and called everybody else who actually was commenting on this, we didn't even need to sit down with Joe Biden and interview him to know that he is not there. And now they're calling us conspirators. It's the same thing, just like we were conspirators with COVID and Russian conspirators. It's never ending. Resistance, QAnon, whatever. There had to be a secret group of high-level leaders who control Biden. Is that wrong? Or is that absolutely right? And who will set into motion their plan to replace Biden. Nothing else made sense. They were in full agreement. Now, what I saw for myself confirmed something was amiss, says this journalist. Thank you. I spent much of the spring, summer, and the fall of 2020 on the primary campaign trail with Biden. In the period before he was granted Secret Service protection, his events were usually of modest size, were more freewheeling affairs. Reporters inched up to the candidate. He took the rope line. He rarely took questions even back then. A teetotaler, he was not the kind of candidate who hung out at a hotel bar after campaigning, although Jill would enjoy a glass of Pinot Noir in a Marriott lobby, but he was visible, closely observable. Campaign trail is a grueling exercise for anybody, any age. From the youngest network embeds to the oldest would-be presidents, and back then, there were days when Biden appeared sharper than on others. I knew it was a good day when he saw me and winked. This is in 2020. On such occasions, he joked and prayed and cried with voters. He stayed, take a photograph. There was no question back then he was alive and present. On bad days, which were unpredictable, but reliably occurred during a challenging news cycle, Biden was less animated then. In 2020, he stared off. He did not make eye contact. He would trip over words, even if they were programmed into a teleprompter. And when that happened, he was hurried out of the venue quickly, and he was ushered into a waiting SUV. Okay, that was back then. Now, this April, at a reception before the White House Correspondents' Dinner, this journalist is back 4 years later. A sea of people waiting for a photo with the president and the First Lady in the basement of the Hilton. Photo line is a trauma. The main attraction must stand there. It's a human prop, person after person. You've seen these, all in the photo line. Now, the first person I saw upon entering the space was First Lady Jill. I like her a lot. The Bidens are famous for their willingness to mourn with others, blah, blah, blah. Now, in the basement, I smiled and said hello. She looked back at me with a confused and panicked expression. It was as if she had just received horrible news and was about to run out of the room and into some kind of family emergency. Dr. Jill says, hi. Then she glanced over to her right. Oh, okay. Journalist says, I had not seen the president up close in some time. I had skipped this season's holiday parties, and I was preoccupied with covering Trump's legal and political dramas, so I hadn't been showing up at the White House. Probably a nice little distraction also. Everybody's talking about Trump. They're not worried about Joe Biden's dementia. Now, unlike Trump, he wasn't very accessible to the press anyways. I couldn't get to Joe. Trump was out there talking to the press every day outside of the courtroom. So why bother? Biden had done few interviews. He wasn't prone to interrupting his schedule with a surprise media circus in the Oval Office. He kept a tight circle, the same close advisors for 30 years. So unlike with Trump, you didn't need to hang around the West Wing hallways to try to speak to him. It was all locked down. Now, I followed the First Lady's gaze. She shows up to this party, and I found the president. Now I understood why Dr. Jill had a panicked expression. Up close, the President Biden does not look quite plausible. It's not that he's old. We all know what old looks like. Bernie Sanders is old. Mitch McConnell is old. Most of the ruling class is old. The president was something stranger, something not of this earth. Now, this was true even in 2020, though. His face had then an uncanny valley quality that injectable aficionados call low trust, if only by millimeters. His cosmetically altered proportions knocked his overall facial harmony into the realm of impossibility. Skin's all manipulated, eyes half shut, hot, doesn't blink at the regular time, has a weird stare. Now, if the president was being portrayed in this way, they came out and said a lot of the criticism was just about cheap fakes. Now, they didn't need to monitor him. They thought this was good enough. They were focused on Trump. But my heart stopped, she says, as I extended my hand to greet the president. My heart stopped. I tried to make eye contact, but it was like his eyes, though open, were not on. His face had a waxy quality. He smiled. It was a sweet smile. It made me sad in a way I can't fully convey. I always thought, and I wrote, that he was a decent man. If ambition was his only sin, it seemed to be committed sin that all politicians do. But he took my hand in his. I was startled by how it felt. Not cold, but cool. The basement was so warm that people were sweating and complaining that they were sweating. This was a silly black tie affair. I said, hello. Biden's sweet smile stayed frozen. He spoke very slowly in a very soft voice. And what's your name? He asked. Exiting the room after the photo, the group of reporters, not instigated by me, I should know, made guesses about how dead he appeared to be, percentage-wise, which is hysterical. That's exactly what I would be joking about if I were in there. Someone says, 40% dead? Yeah, 40%'s about good. He was at 60% dead 2 nights ago. You should have seen that. If you thought tonight was bad, 60% is way bad. It was a bad night, okay? That was the spin from the White House and his allies. But when I watched the president amble stiffly across the stage, my first thought was, he doesn't look so bad. For months, everything I had heard, plus some of what I had seen, led me to brace for something much more dire. So she's actually saying, it sounds like he forgot her name, and he's actually been worse, all right? So what we saw at the debate stage was actually better. This is a piece from Olivia Newsy, who apparently knew long time ago that Joe Biden is just terrible. Now, they dragged out Newsom to try to paper over this thing and rehabilitate the image. And what it feels like is that Newsom is trying to campaign for number 2. So when Kamala goes into number 1, they'll bring up Newsom for number 2. They're going to need a white male in there to calm their racist party. So here is what Newsom said.
They don't even reimburse you. I've been going wherever I've been asked, whatever task, large and small, because I believe in this man. I believe in his character. I believe that he has been one of the most transformative presidents in our collective lifetime. I really believe it. There's a decency to Joe Biden.
There is?
I'm old-fashioned. Character matters, but I'm also old-fashioned in this respect. Results matter.
Character matters? Is that why you slept with your campaign manager's wife?
Politics is not just performative, not just entertainment. It's about getting things done.
Your state is one of the most broken states in the entire country.
A remarkable 3.5 years from my perspective. It's been, dare I say, a masterclass. And I don't say that lightly. I hope we pause. Democrat, we're so good at focusing again on what's wrong and not celebrating what's right. Yeah. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that for a second. I mean, we are the envy of the globe. Doesn't matter where you go. The rest of the world looks to us and says, what are they all complaining about? Look at this economy. 40 straight months with unemployment at or below 4%. Best in our lifetime.
I think except until those numbers came out, what, today? It's like at 4.1% today, so that talking point's gone. And that talking point is a stupid talking point anyways, because they always revise the numbers. And if you look at the numbers, they're counting part-time jobs rather than full-time jobs, and a bunch of illegal immigrants are taking those jobs, and it's not a good situation in general. And also, they're very excited about everybody working, and nobody's saving. Everybody's broke. So, all right, that's apparently going to be the guy who's going to slot in here and maybe bring up the number 2 position to try to save this administration. But Joe Biden is gone. Can't remember anybody. And that was probably a good day for him. They had 7 days of prep, was probably about as rested as he can get. And he's not remembering reporters' names. Jill Biden's horrified he's going to keel over. They're throwing him out of events like they threw Hillary into that van like a side of beef when she collapsed. Can't the Democrats just have somebody who can function for a campaign season? I mean, what's going on here? But we're going to continue to cover this, my friends. The knives are out for Joe. As you could see, they're saying he's like a wax figure who's 40% dead, which is low. Those numbers are low, okay? It's like definitely 80% on a good day. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking this video. And thank you so much for inviting someone you know or love to come check this channel out. YouTube does not like to promote our stuff because we're not authoritative, you know, like CNN is. So we appreciate you sharing it. Great way for us to reach new people and to have some more fun here. So thanks for doing that. We got another great video queued up coming up next. Thanks for sticking around, watching that one, and we'll see you back here on the next one.